They forged a DNA test to erase me from my own family. Hi, I'm Sierra. 12 years ago, after one fight, my parents left me at the gates of an orphanage and never looked back. No calls, no visits, nothing. I thought that was the worst part, until I found out they'd used my name in fraudulent donations, stolen my research, and let my sister nearly kill a child in her care, all while painting me as the problem. Ever been blamed for something you didn't do? Or watched someone else rise while you were buried? Tell me in the comments, what would you do if the people who hurt you still smiled in public like nothing happened? Because this is the story of what happens when the girl they abandoned comes back as their reckoning. Let me show you how it all began. 12 years of silence, and now they send gold-embossed lies to my mailbox? I stared at the envelope for a long time before touching it, like it might catch fire. Cream-colored, thick as guilt. My name written in a script I hadn't seen since the day they left me at the gates of Willow Haven. Miss Sierra Langston, it read, like they still had the right to name me. But I knew that handwriting. Catherine's. Even without a return address, her presence bled through the page like perfume you didn't ask to smell again. Inside, on heavy embossed cardstock, two names shimmered in gold: Alina Langston and Damien Locke. A wedding, at the Grand Sovereign, Seattle's most exclusive hotel. $800 per plate, a 6-month waiting list, and they had the gall to act like nothing happened. No message, no apology, just a declaration. This is happening, and we expect you to show. They forgot who I'd become. 12 years ago, I stood outside a locked orphanage gate, holding a threadbare duffel bag and a bruised ego. No money, no explanation, just, this is for the best. I remember watching the tail lights of my parents' Mercedes fade into the mist while the director asked me if I had any allergies. Back then, I kept thinking, if I prove myself, they'll take me back. I don't think that way anymore. I dropped the invitation on the counter like it had burned me and walked toward the window. Seattle was sulking under rain clouds, as usual. But even through the gray, I could see the spire of the Grand Sovereign from here. So close, so hollow. Noah came up behind me, still in his gym hoodie, hair damp from the shower. He glanced at the open card on the marble counter. That what I think it is? I nodded once. You okay? He asked. No, I said. But I will be. They didn't know I'd spent the last decade building something they couldn't touch. That while they were printing fake family photos and posing at fundraisers, I was turning pennies into power. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. I had built a life, a career, a name. And I had a husband who didn't just believe in me. He saw me. He reached for my hand gently, but I pulled away. Not out of anger, but focus. The air between us buzzed with a tension he understood too well. This wasn't about feelings. This was about legacy. I turned toward the kitchen, picked up the ceramic teapot, Catherine's wedding gift to me, once upon a time. I had kept it in the back of the cabinet for years. Today, I filled it, boiled water, then let it sit cold. As the steam vanished, so did the last ounce of sentiment I had left for her. I poured it out in the sink. I'm going, I told Noah. I want them to look me in the eye this time. He didn't ask if I was sure. He just nodded and left the room to give me space. I walked to my closet and pulled out the dress. Black, sleek, tailored like a secret. The kind of dress that says, I don't need to scream to be heard. I ran my fingers down its side, remembering why I bought it in the first place. To wear the day I took back what they stole. I stepped into the dress and stood in front of the mirror. My reflection looked back, steady and unreadable. No fear, no hope, just precision. My eyes, her eyes, held no softness now. Catherine used to tell me I had her gaze. Maybe. But tonight, it was sharpened into something she never meant to raise. They thought they were inviting the girl they left behind. They were about to meet the woman I became because of it. Later that night, I sat at my desk, the invitation still lying in front of me like a challenge. I couldn't sleep, so I pulled out my old storage box, the one labeled Before. Inside were documents I hadn't touched in years: my revoked scholarship letter, the student blog that accused me of plagiarism, the unsigned letter from a family friend suggesting I consider changing my last name to avoid embarrassment. I flipped through them until I found what I didn't know I was looking for: a faded intake form from Willow Haven, dated the day I arrived. Under Guardian Contact, it simply said, "Not applicable." They hadn't just left me behind, they'd erased me, paper by paper, signature by signature. The room around me was dim, lit only by a single desk lamp. The soft hum of the rain outside sounded like static on an old television. Each droplet seemed to tap the glass, whispering, "Remember." I stared at that line for a long time, then picked up my phone and texted Noah one word: RSVP'd. Seconds later, he replied, "War or peace?" I smiled as I typed back, "Both. Depends on who's in the room." The next morning, I transferred a sizable donation, anonymously, to Willow Haven Orphanage, enough to fund 3 years' worth of college prep programs and mental health support. The transfer page asked for a dedication line. I typed, "In honor of every child you never erased." I didn't do it for applause. I did it because they had to know. I didn't just make it out. I made it better. That afternoon, a new email landed in my inbox. No subject line, no signature, just a single sentence. "If you're going back, you deserve to know what really happened to patient 17A. And just like that, I knew this wedding wasn't a reunion. It was a battlefield. And I was ready. The email had no subject line, no sender name, just a sentence that unraveled everything. "If you're going back, you deserve to know what really happened to patient 17A. I stared at it for 5 full minutes before clicking. My pulse didn't spike. It slowed, like my body was holding its breath, anticipating the crash. A PDF opened. Grainy. Redacted in some places. But the important parts were visible. Hospital. Central Seattle Medical. Year, 2017. Patient. Male. 4 years old. Diagnosis: mild asthma. Attending: Cal Lang. I froze. That name. Cal Lang, Alina's alias during her residency. Chosen, she once said, because it sounded like authority. I remembered the night she tossed that name across a dinner table like a business card, smirking as our parents beamed. According to the file, the child had been stable, admitted overnight for observation. But someone administered the wrong dose of epinephrine. The child went into anaphylactic shock, then a coma. He survived, but with unknown long-term complications. There were no charges filed, no public reports. Only one note in bold: case dismissed internally, no disciplinary action. It wasn't just a medical error, it was a cover-up. I forwarded the file to Noah without comment. Then I stood up, set my mug down, and walked straight to the cabinet I hadn't touched in years. The one labeled Before. Inside, chaos. Old envelopes, crumpled letters, yellowed applications. I dumped everything out onto the floor, kneeling as if in prayer, arranging pieces of my forgotten life like a forensic technician. Scholarship letters, notices of withdrawal, anonymous hate mail. Even a printout of a student blog post titled "The Real Sierra Langston, Liar or Victim." I had tried to forget all of it. Now, I needed every line. Noah arrived minutes later, rain still clinging to his coat. He took one look at the floor and asked, "How deep are we going?" "All the way," I said. We sat side by side, each on a laptop, the room lit only by the blue light of revelation. I pulled up the DNA report. Pacific Diagnostics, 2015. The document that claimed Catherine Langston and I had inconclusive maternal compatibility. At the time, it destroyed me. I remembered locking myself in a bathroom stall at school, staring at my reflection and whispering, maybe I really don't belong to them. Noah ran the lab's credentials. It had been shut down 3 years later for irregularities. The head physician lost his license over falsified data. And then came the kicker. A wire transfer, dated 2 weeks before my test. $5,000 from a Langston Foundation subaccount, routed to a private mailbox in Bellevue. Sender, Catherine Langston. I didn't flinch, didn't blink. Next came the blog post smear campaign. Noah dug through archives, web scrapes, forum caches, the IP address linked to a guest network, registered to the Langston estate. And then, the invoices. I was listed as a consultant on multiple tax filings for the Langston Foundation between the ages of 19 and 24. Over $250,000 in disbursements under my name. I had never seen a cent, never signed a form, never approved a project. They used you as a shell, Noah murmured. You weren't erased. You were weaponized. I felt it then. Not anger, not sadness, but something sharper, like clarity, like steel sliding into place inside my ribs. That night, I printed the most damning documents: the forged test, the anonymous blog, the falsified financials. I placed them in a sleek black folder and labeled it in silver ink. Proof. I tucked it into my briefcase like a knife. Then I opened a new message. To Becca Lane. Subject: Langston family, preliminary materials. Body: not for publication, yet. Just in case I don't make it to the wedding. Attachment: proof. .pdf. I hit send. It wasn't paranoia. It was insurance. Later, in the kitchen, I poured coffee with surgical steadiness. Rain crawled down the window like slow tears. In the distance, lightning flickered behind the skyline. I picked up the faded Willow Haven intake form. It still said, Guardian contact, not applicable. That one line had haunted me for years, but now I saw it for what it truly was: not rejection, a declaration. They didn't just abandon me, they erased me. Have you ever realized you weren't just unwanted, but intentionally erased? That the silence wasn't distance, but design? If you've ever felt like someone rewrote the story without you in it, leave a comment number 7 below. Let's see what happens when the erased start writing their own chapters. But I've learned something since then. Erased doesn't mean gone. Erased means you get to come back invisible. And invisible is powerful. I stood quietly in the doorway, watching the city shimmer. Somewhere across the water, Catherine was likely sipping tea, rehearsing her seating chart, never imagining her ghost had grown teeth. They buried me in silence. Now I was building a voice loud enough to echo through every room they'd locked me out of. And this was just the beginning. The flyer arrived tucked between 2 pieces of junk mail, a soft cream with sharp edges, just like her. At the top, National Wellness Forum honors Seattle's rising star, Dr. Alina Langston. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was so on brand. My sister, the saint, the prodigy, the thief. I set it gently on the counter and stared at her photo. Alina in a lab coat, smiling in that perfectly measured way. The caption under it made my jaw tighten. Award-winning pioneer in community-based nutritional research. I didn't need to read the abstract. I could have recited it word for word. She hadn't just borrowed my work. She had stolen my thesis, my capstone project, my first published model, entire sections, untouched. The wording, the framework, even the phrasing in the conclusion I'd rewritten 3 times through tears. All of it, mine. I opened my old cloud archive and pulled up the file. Title: Sustainable Solutions in Underserved Communities, a ground-up nutritional model. Then I opened the Foundation's press release. Identical. Noah walked into the kitchen and froze at my expression. "You look like you're planning a murder." I turned the flyer toward him. "I might settle for public exposure." He took one look. "Oh, hell no." "She used it," I said flatly. "Every word. She didn't even bother to change the citation formatting." Noah leaned on the counter, studying me. "You going to the gala?" "Absolutely," I said. "But I'm not going for the speeches." I contacted the foundation and requested the public abstract submissions. Their assistant sent a scanned copy within the hour. I opened Alina's submission and compared it line by line. Not just similar. Identical. She must have copied it from my cloud backup, likely during her surprise visit senior year, when I'd been pulling all-nighters and left my drive connected in the library. There were no citations, no credits. Just her name, her photo, her smile. I highlighted entire paragraphs, traced her theft like blood spatter. She didn't just plagiarize. She erased me again. The awards gala was held at the Cascade Conservatory, a towering venue of glass and steel that overlooked Seattle's skyline. Spotlights lit the stairway like a stage, and inside, the scent of white orchids clashed with champagne and artifice. I wore black. Again. Long sleeves, slit at the back, no jewelry. Sharp angles, clean lines. I didn't want to look beautiful. I wanted to look inevitable. As I entered through the side reserved for past patrons, a hostess rushed forward. "Miss Langston, Reed, so sorry," she stammered. "We're so honored to have you back." I nodded, lips tight. She didn't know the irony. Last year I donated anonymously to this very forum. I thought I was lifting women up. Turns out I was funding a fraud. The ballroom buzzed with anticipation. Doctors, academics, board members, all ready to celebrate Alina Langston, visionary in equitable nutrition. I watched from a table near the side, calm as glass. Alina took the stage in a silk ivory pantsuit, exuding poised brilliance. Her voice wavered just enough to seem sincere. "We must go beyond models," she said, "and build community-rooted solutions." My model, my phrase, my fury. Her slideshow appeared behind her, diagrams I'd built, metrics I had scraped together from years in underserved clinics. She spoke like she'd lived it, but I had lived it. She just stole the script. When applause broke, I stood. Tables stilled. Forks froze. Heads turned. "I'd like to say a few words," I said, my voice even. Alina's eyes locked on mine. She blinked. Once, twice. The corners of her smile trembled, then flattened. "I'm Sierra Langston," I announced. "Some of you might know me. You should, because you just gave an award to my research. Only, not with my name on it." A ripple of confusion passed through the room. I walked forward, heels echoing like a metronome. I handed a bound packet to the head of the committee. Her submission and mine, metadata included. Her file was created 3 weeks after mine. From the same IP. No citations, no edits. Just theft. The chairman flipped pages. His brow furrowed. Alina shifted behind the podium, fingers clenched white on its edge. I faced the audience. This thesis earned her a scholarship that I was denied. It earned her a clinical position based on a lie. While she reaped applause, I worked 3 jobs and watched the door every night for a second chance. I turned back to her. "You didn't just take my work, Alina. You took the breath I lost defending it. You took the nights I cried thinking I wasn't good enough. And then you took my future. But here's the part you didn't plan on." I smiled. I survived. And now, I speak. The silence in that ballroom was delicious. A woman in a gray blazer whispered, "Is that true?" A man in the third row murmured, "That's plagiarism." The committee chair raised his hand and said firmly, "We will open an investigation immediately." Noah met me at the back of the room. His eyes flicked to the crowd. "You sure you don't want to take a bow?" I glanced over my shoulder. Alina still stood frozen, face draining of color. One donor had already slipped out, whispering into a phone. "No," I said. "I didn't come for a bow. I came for a correction." At home, I printed the press release that praised her for original methodology. I circled the phrase in red ink. Then I slashed a thick X through it. Underneath, I wrote, "Author, Sierra Langston. Revision complete." The chandeliers glistened like gilt. That was my first thought as I stepped into the ballroom of the Sovereign Hotel, Seattle's crown jewel of excess. The Langston Foundation Gala was in full swing. Polished floors, crystal glassware, gowns that whispered wealth. People mingled, laughed, flattered each other with smiles too white and too rehearsed. I knew this dance. I just never thought I'd walk back into it as the storm. A jazz quartet played something old and elegant. Waiters moved like shadows. Every table bore the Langston crest, gold embossed bleeding pride. Catherine was holding court in the center, draped in navy velvet, her signature diamond pin catching every light in the room. Alina stood nearby, pale and poised, laughing too loudly. And Henry, my father, lingered near the edge, the eternal diplomat, sipping from a glass of something brown. I'd timed everything. The USB drive was already in the hands of the AV technician. He didn't ask questions. I didn't offer answers. I simply told him, "When I raise my glass, press play." Noah watched me from across the ballroom. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. But his presence steadied me like breath. A bell chimed once. Catherine took the stage, gracious and radiant in the way only practiced liars could manage. "Welcome, friends, partners, and believers," she began. Her voice flowed like warm silk. "Tonight, we celebrate progress, unity, and the power of legacy." Legacy. That word tasted like ash. I watched her lift her champagne. The room followed, robotic and reverent. Then she said it. "To the next generation, may they honor the name we've built." I stood and raised my own glass. "To truth," I said. The AV screen behind her flickered. She froze, and then it began. First, spreadsheets. Clean, clinical, irrefutable. Row after row of consulting payments, under my name, my birth name. Sierra Langston, Medical Strategy Advisor, $42,000. Dated during years I was eating canned beans and Wi-Fi hopping across libraries. Then came the internal memos, expense reports, e-signatures traced to a Langston office computer. And finally, tax documents, filed, stamped, fraudulent. Gasps rippled like aftershocks. Someone dropped a glass. Catherine turned, eyes wide but face locked. Alina took a step back. Henry's hand trembled as he placed his drink down with the careful coordination of a man who had just realized his hands were no longer clean. I walked toward the stage. Catherine tried to intercept me. "Sierra," she hissed under her breath. "What are you doing?" I smiled, sweet and lethal. "Correcting the record." I reached the mic. The room quieted so completely I could hear someone's bracelet jingle near the back. "For years," I began, "this family has told a story about me. That I left. That I was unstable. That I disappeared. But that's not the truth, is it?" I turned toward the screen. "They didn't just cast me out. They erased me, then used me. They put my name on fraudulent filings, laundered money through charities using my identity, and told the IRS I was a paid consultant." I paused. While I was sleeping on dorm benches, a man in the second row leaned forward, stunned. A woman 2 tables back pulled out her phone, slowly recording. The camera light blinked like a witness. Alina opened her mouth, closed it again. Noah stepped forward, joining me at the base of the stage. And here's the kicker, I continued. Every document you see has already been submitted to the state attorney and the IRS. And copies? They're with the media. Catherine's voice cracked. This is a family matter. No, I said, steady and sharp. This is a legal matter. You made it public the moment you put your crimes in my name. Damien appeared beside Henry, eyes wide, face blank. I defended you, he whispered to Alina. She looked like glass about to shatter. She tried to meet his eyes but failed. Her hands hung useless by her sides. People stood now. Donors, journalists. One woman near the front said, "This is serious, right?" Another murmured, "Is that real?" "This is slander," Catherine snapped, unsubstantiated. "It's evidence," I replied. And I walked away from the mic. Behind me, the screen froze on a still, a reimbursement form with my forged signature and the Langston crest in the corner. I watched the reflection of the screen in someone's wine glass. It glowed like justice in red and white. In silence, the truth screamed. Backstage, I exhaled. Noah reached for my hand. It was warm, grounded. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said, "but I'm finally visible." I walked past a row of gilded chairs, now half empty. A staffer nodded at me without saying a word, but I saw it in her face. Not sympathy, not fear. Recognition. The email came at 6:14 a.m. No subject, no sender I recognized. Just a single line of text that made my coffee freeze halfway to my lips. She wasn't supposed to be on the pediatric floor. Attached was a redacted hospital incident report. I downloaded it before it could vanish. The file name was bland, case 17a.pdf, but inside it was fire. Patient, male, age, 4. Diagnosis, mild asthma. Outcome, induced coma. Attending physician, Dr. Cal Langalina. I sank onto the kitchen stool, fingers gripping the counter like an anchor. I remembered the whispers back in 2017. Something about a pediatric case gone wrong. A child left unresponsive after medication. Catherine had waved it off at the time. People love drama, it was handled internally. I never pressed. I didn't have the power back then. But now I had the shovel. And the rage. Noah appeared in the doorway, still half asleep. I held up my phone. "Patient 17A, I said. His eyes sharpened instantly. "She put a kid in a coma?" "Looks like it," I said, pulling up the document and pointing at the dosage section. Incorrect administration of epinephrine. She wasn't even supposed to be assigned to PDs. He scanned the report, jaw tightening. This doesn't just sink her, it buries her. We started digging. By noon, Becca Lane had confirmed that Pacific Children's Hospital had settled a malpractice claim quietly in late 2017. Sealed records, no official charges. The attending physician had been reassigned after review, but no suspension, no loss of license, just a quiet relocation, just enough red tape to hide a crime in daylight. Noah tracked the timeline. That was the same quarter Alina won the Women in Health Sciences scholarship. The same season she gave a speech about the sanctity of trust in clinical practice. I laughed. It was hollow. By 2 p.m., I had everything I needed. The internal report, the claim settlement summary, testimony from an anonymous nurse who said strings had been pulled. I bundled it all into a folder titled Dr. Langston, Ethics Violation, and scheduled it for midnight delivery to the State Medical Board, 3 watchdog blogs, and 1 particularly unforgiving pediatric justice group. Have you ever stood at the edge of justice, knowing that pressing send might burn bridges forever? That moment when silence would be safer, but truth is louder? If you've ever had to choose between peace and what's right, comment number 9 below. Now watch what happens when the truth finally hits send. But before that, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went back to the hospital. Not as a patient, not as a volunteer, just as a woman who wanted to look at the room where a child's life had been paused. I asked for a visitor's badge, gave a fake name, and wandered to the pediatric wing. It had been redecorated. Pastel walls, murals of cartoon animals, a corner reading bench shaped like a boat. Room 204, according to the report. Now labeled Art Therapy. I stood outside the door, my hands curled into fists. Then I whispered, "You deserved better, kid," and walked away. Back home, I printed the emails, checked every attachment twice. Then I called Catherine. She picked up on the second ring. "You've made your point," she snapped. "Oh, I'm just getting started," I said. "Tell me, how much did it cost to make that child disappear?" Her breath caught. I continued. "And when you buried the evidence, did you think it would stay down forever? Or were you just counting on me never digging? You don't understand." "No, you don't," I said, voice cold. "You created a monster and thought if you named her Alina, she'd behave better than me." She hung up. I let the silence settle. At 12:01 a.m., the emails went out. I watched the progress bars load one by one, like dominoes falling. By 7 a.m., Alina's photo was gone from the hospital's website. By noon, the press had picked it up. Langston prodigy under investigation for pediatric incident cover-up. I didn't go online. I didn't need to. The headlines would do the speaking for me. That afternoon, my door shook with the force of Catherine's fury. I opened it slowly, met her eyes, and said nothing. "You've destroyed her," she cried. "No," I said, stepping aside so she could see the stack of folders on my dining table. "She did that herself. I just turned on the lights." She pointed a trembling finger at me. "You always wanted to be the victim." "No," I said. "I just refused to stay buried." She tried again. "She was under pressure. She was reckless. And you protected her because she looked the part, because she didn't make you uncomfortable." Catherine's face crumpled into something halfway between rage and regret. Behind her, in the hallway, stood Henry, quiet, still. For once, not defending, just watching. I didn't say goodbye. I closed the door. Inside, I let my breath go slowly, deliberately. The apartment was warm. Safe. Mine. Noah came over that evening, holding takeout and silence. We ate without talking. At one point, he reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You didn't do this for revenge," he said quietly. "You did it for justice." I looked at him and nodded. Because it was true. And because tomorrow, I had one more move to make. Later that night, I received a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated before pressing play. It was Alina. Her voice shook, but she didn't cry. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she said. "I wasn't supposed to be there that night. I froze. And then Mom made it all go away. Please don't do this." She paused. "You win, okay? Just don't finish me." I didn't respond. I didn't save the message. I just stood at the window looking out at the city that once didn't know I existed, and whispered, "This isn't about winning." I never planned for it to end this way, not with velvet ropes snapping, donors scattering, and Catherine Langston standing on stage with her mouth open and her world caving in. But maybe that was the only way a house of mirrors could collapse. Loud, public, and with enough shards to finally reflect the truth. The final gala took place at the Sovereign again. A different ballroom, a different energy. 1 year ago, I couldn't have entered this space without my hands shaking. Tonight, I didn't shake. I strode. I wore black, as always. A silk pantsuit this time. Sharp collar, exposed back, no jewelry. The outfit whispered control. I entered through the service hallway, past trays of champagne and dessert samples. No formal invitation. I didn't need one, because tonight wasn't about being included. It was about closure. Gregory Langston, my uncle and foundation president, was at the mic. We thank our longtime partners for trusting the Langston legacy. That was my cue. I stepped forward. Noah followed behind me, calm, composed, carrying a slim briefcase. The room shifted. Heads turned. A few jaws dropped. The strings in the background music came to a halt, like a soundtrack losing breath. I didn't take the mic this time. I walked directly to the AV booth. I need 5 minutes, I told the tech. He hesitated, then saw the folder in Noah's hand. Saw the name on it, IRS Audit Summary. He nodded. A beat later, the screens behind the stage went dark, then lit up with data. Wire transfers, falsified medical grants, shell nonprofits, each tied to the Langston Foundation and its primary executive signers. All of them Langstons. All of them were approved in years when I was supposedly estranged. Murmurs turned into outrage. Someone near the back yelled, "This is fraud!" A woman in a green dress looked around, panicked, and whispered to her husband, "Didn't we donate to this last quarter?" Catherine stood, trying to hold posture, but her face betrayed her. Her mouth moved, but no words came out. Just the sharp inhale of a woman who finally realized her name could no longer shield her. Henry turned to her, mouth open. "You told me?" "I told you what you needed to hear," she snapped, too fast. "Apparently not," he muttered, stepping back as though he no longer recognized the woman beside him. The air felt charged, electric, years of silence snapping like dry branches underfoot. Jarth appeared from the side, stepped in front of the media cluster. "All documents have been submitted to the IRS and State Attorney General's office," he said. "This gala is officially over." I didn't need to say a word, but I wanted to. So I walked to center stage. "I was never gone," I said into the quiet. "You just tried to edit me out. But ghosts don't stay quiet forever." I turned to Catherine. "You used my name to build this empire. While I slept in borrowed beds, you signed checks under my initials." Catherine whispered, "You could have handled this privately." "No," I said. "You handled it privately. I'm fixing it publicly." Behind me, the screen flashed one last document, a tax form with my name, forged, signed with a date that matched my 22nd birthday. A ripple went through the crowd. Not dramatic, just final. I stepped off stage and let the storm do the rest. By morning, headlines flooded the city. Langston Foundation frozen amid IRS investigation. Medical fraud tied to family legacy. Donors demand transparency. Alina disappeared from social media. Her license was flagged for formal review. Catherine canceled every appearance, citing stress and health concerns. Gregory resigned. Henry remained quiet. The empire cracked. But I didn't cheer. Instead, I drove. Out of the city. Past the skyline. Toward the one place where all this began. Willow Haven Orphanage. The gates looked smaller than I remembered. Less like a sentence. More like a beginning. I met with the current director, a kind woman named Lynn. She offered tea, but I declined. I handed her a folder. Transfer of ownership for the newly funded learning center on the orphanage grounds. "I'd like to name it Sierra Hall," I said. She blinked. "After yourself?" "After the girl you once made space for, so she could become me." The building was still under construction, but I walked through it slowly. Each unfinished wall felt like breath, like freedom poured in bricks, like finally becoming whole. I passed by an open classroom with nothing but scaffolding and saw a name carved into the plywood by the window. SL +13. It was mine. A whisper from the version of me who thought no one would ever come back for her. That night, back home, I stood on my balcony with a glass of water and no war in my chest. Noah joined me. He didn't speak, just stood there. Sometimes silence was enough. At midnight, I received a message. No subject, no name, just one sentence. We remember what you did. Thank you, I didn't recognize the number, but I didn't need to. The only thing louder than being erased is being remembered. And this time, I wrote the ending. I didn't need an apology to be free. Today, I live under my real name, in the light of truth, no longer hiding or proving myself to the people who once tried to erase me. After everything, I'm no longer the one who was left behind. I'm the one who chose to move forward. I've learned this. Justice doesn't always come fast, but it always comes if you stay resilient and honest with yourself. Those who use power to silence others may escape for a while, but the truth always finds a way out. And dignity is something no one can take from you unless you surrender it. If you've ever been denied, silenced, or lived in someone else's shadow, share your story. What gave you the courage to rise? And if you haven't yet, what's still holding you back? Drop a comment below. Your voice could be the light someone else is searching for in their darkness. And if you're drawn to stories of survival, truth, and reclaiming your power, make sure to follow this channel. The next video will take you on a new journey, where a girl once labeled invisible turns her pain into power and her love into strength.